All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the officially seventh, maybe eighth episode of the podcast. My name is Markus, and today we don't have Trelsey, but we have two guests today, and this is going to be the first section of our uh, uh, new segment where we talk about a topic instead of a person. So it's going to be more of a back and forth and a very loose. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Who are you? Start with the oldest one.
That would be me, I suppose. My name is John Hauge. I am a generalist game developer, which can mean so much. I mostly do programming in C# and Unity, and I also do a lot of game design. So I do game design and game programming. Other than that, I have tried to be a movie editor. I've tried to become a rock star. Spent 8 years working in a bakery, and then I decided that wasn't something I wanted to do with my life forever. So I started to study at Noroff, and that led me to getting a job in the gaming industry.
Right. And
Yeah.
second one here.
Yeah, I'm Eirik Waldeland. I am a technical artist and a VFX artist. They are more closely related than people think, apparently. Doing my third year at Noroff right now, and I'm also working at Krillbite Studio in Oslo. Yeah, me.
Fantastic. So the reason I invited both of you guys on here is that both of you have been kind of doing stuff before you guys started working in actual game companies. And Trausti, who couldn't be here, was very interested in talking to Eirik because he's in our class, and he just got an internship last summer or this summer, right before the summer, at a game company, which was very exciting for the rest of us in the same class because we don't actually we didn't think that far. So I'm kind of curious as to how you just went with it. Like, what were you thinking?
Well, I don't know. I mean, ever since I started at Noroff, like the goal had always been to get that industry experience because that's apparently what you needed to go further. And so even in my first year, I threw some application around. I even applied at Johan John's studio, actually. I didn't get accepted, but that's okay. So just by constantly, showing off the work you do, you get a certain amount of attention. Whether that's like positive or negative attention doesn't really matter as long as you just try to stand out, I think. So I just kept posting, and Joshua picked that up, and he knew that I was doing tech art, and this studio needed a tech artist. And I remember just thinking I had really a tech art portfolio show, so that when instantly the same night I heard that, I just threw together a tech art portfolio with everything I had that could be thought of as tech art, and I just sent it in. And I showed that I was willing to relocate because studios in Oslo and I was in Kristiansand. And yeah, I just got in there, and that was awesome. But of course, that there was a lot of no's, a lot of no applications before that.
Because I was a bit curious because you were just like us when it came to the game industry. Like you didn't really know what was going on, right? Until you really got into the classes and the courses. So when did you kind of know what a tech artist was, and that was what you were interested in?
So funny thing about that is that before I started Noroff, I was, when I was doing my 3D modeling, I was doing my coding, I was playing around in the engine, doing a little bit of everything. And then I got to Noroff and I realized that, hey, everybody wants to do this one thing or this one thing, and that's basically coding or modeling. And I was like, it's a lot of mouths to feed in these two fields, and I don't think there's a lot of food on the table. So I started researching, like, what is the most desired skill set in the gaming industry right now? And I got across this other podcast, I don't remember what it was, and they were like talking about tech art. And it's like, yeah, we need tech art, everybody needs tech art. And I was like, what is tech art? And basically from there on out, I just started, deep diving into shaders and making my own tools, creating pipelines basically. And that's what I did on the project on Noroff as well after that with the people I worked with.
Yeah, because
it was like a year and a half ago, I think. So it's still quite new to me.
Yeah, because I remember in second year, I just started hearing about all the different things you've been doing that no one out of us were touching in the same year, which is kind of a thing I want to talk to John about here. Hey, John.
Just listening in.
So you have, I would say you have more experience in the game industry than either of us, at least for now.
Depending on which branch of the gaming industry you're talking about.
So how was your process when leaving Noroff and going into starting to work in general?
Well, I took up all the loan I could from the student loans, and I kind of saved them in a pool. And when I finished school, I kind of committed myself to I'll use this until it runs out, and then I'll get a proper job. So
Right.
I managed to land some smaller gigs, and then I gradually started to earn a little money, but not enough to live on. As Eirik says, there's a lot of mouths to feed and not that much food on the table, and that's very true. And it's a very competitive to land jobs, and to get a job, you need to have released 2 games and have 5 years of experience, right? That doesn't make any sense. That's a junior position. So what I did was just take on whatever I could find, and eventually I landed a job in blockchain metaverse project, which I worked on very briefly, but that paid enough to that I could actually live on that salary. So that was where I entered, but that lasted for like a month before Ole, who is my boss at where I work now, kind of headhunted me on LinkedIn, and I've been with them now for 2 years soon.
That's kind of like that's what you want, right? Being picked up instead of having to apply.
Yeah, it was weird. I was like given 2 job offers in a very short period of time when I was having a full-time job. When I wasn't looking for a job, I was suddenly getting job offers, and I was like, oh, that's the best way to not find a job, I guess, not to look for one.
Exactly. I mean, both of you guys have already like kind of currently landed jobs that you're probably gonna have for at least I'm hoping at least for another year plus.
No, my contract's still May, so I'll see about that.
So I'm kind of wondering, like, what would you do today if you were just graduating or you were about to graduate, like I am, or I guess Eirik, you just landed an internship, but if you didn't have one right now, what would your current approach be? Do you guys know about the Norwegian movie budget kind of thing you can get for Norwegian culture games?
The grants?
Yeah, the grants, yeah.
And a 5 grant, yeah. Well, should I go first, or do you want to go?
Yeah. Like if you're starting out and you want to build your own game, you shouldn't go there because it's not even meant for that. Then you should go to your local film centers and apply for grant there, which part of the funding that NFE gets from the state goes to the movie center. So that's to support the more local, smaller projects, while NFE is for the bigger ones.
Yeah, just as Jon said, I kind of made this mistake myself last year when me and some schoolmates were starting up our own little studio, and we went directly to NFI because we didn't know any better, and of course we got a rejection on our application. And I talked to one of my colleagues who is usually on the jury of accepting this application. It's like, if you're starting out and this is your first time applying, you're probably not going to get accepted. But if you keep applying with the same project multiple times, maybe like 3 plus times, you're probably gonna make it. But as a first-time person applying, you should go to your local movie centers because you're way more likely to receive funding from them, even though the budget isn't as big. The NFI is mostly for the established studios that kind of needs bigger funding for their bigger projects.
Because I'm a bit curious. NFI is, as I've read up on, mostly for Norwegian culture. Do you guys have experience with how these local movie centers are maybe supporting or funding projects that aren't going for Norwegian culture games?
I think I haven't read much upon it, but we have Filmkraft here in Rogaland. I don't think they ask for the same criteria as NFE does for getting grants. I think they're just happy to get any applications for game projects, really, because there aren't much.
All right.
So there's some easy money to get if you know where to get them, and that's the real issue. There is very little information in the in the areas around game production in Norway. I think that smaller, younger people don't know where to go to get grants for producing their ideas or starting to produce their ideas.
Exactly. I mean, this is kind of the reason why we have this episode right here talking about the internships and stuff, because I'm assuming that everyone who's in our class last year and even the 2 years before us are going to think like, okay, what am I going to do when I'm done? You know, I want to go straight into making more, you know, and they don't even know where to look. Personally, I started researching it in summer, and I only found information on NFI, and that wasn't very clear either. So that's why it was so surprising to see Eirik just already in it. I'm like, where did he find this information? And then John obviously getting picked up.
I was lucky too, because I mean, this isn't luck because I want to do tech arts, but it traces back that nobody else on the other schools that are also doing game development really specializes towards tech art either. So even though my studio actually asked Høgskolen before Noroff probably, they couldn't find any tech artists there, and not in any of the other, like, I don't know how many game schools there are in Norway. I think we're like 6 or 7, and then there are folk game schools as well. So like there's a lot.
There's soon more game schools than there are game companies.
Oh yeah, I believe it. But yeah, NFE is the big boy, so that's what comes up. But I think a lot of people are ignoring local art grants as well, because I think some game projects could fall under that. I worked on that last year, mocap project that I mean, I didn't enjoy working on particularly myself, but that fell under that niche, like art, interactive media, game kind of thing, which could receive a lot of funding, even though that grant wasn't particularly aimed towards gaming or the gaming industry.
Yeah, there are definitely money to get from other places other than the grants that go out specifically to games. Like if we are, for example, using post detection to create games that include physical activities, right? So we could be going to ask for money in health grants from the Norwegian Health Institute, for example, because we want to increase physical activity. So if you angle it differently, you can get different kind of money. So, like you said, you can go after art grants if you're making a really artsy game. Then you can start looking somewhere else.
Yeah, because I mean, last year, you, Eirik, I remember in Studio 2, you and 3 other people in our class were already starting to make things designed around, you know, these internships. And I remember you guys made this crazy bee game with like Norwegian inspired stuff. And then another game, which maybe you can tell me about.
Which other game?
The gallery one.
Gallery. Oh yeah, the art gallery. Yeah. So, well, that was more. Arya, her classmates, kind of wanted to do something with an art studio, so she kind of headhunted out the local art museum, and we kind of asked them, hey, can we work for you for free? which I'm like, I don't I don't think that's a particularly good situation to be in. But since you're students, you kind of do that thing, and they were like, sure, and they were still clients, so they kind of struggled to get across what they really wanted, and we kind of had to spoon feed to them. But in the end, we made a demo for them, which they didn't want. But they came back now, and they were like, hey, can you make this a VR project? And we're like, yes, but you gotta pay. So negotiations are still going on with that. So hopefully we'll be able to make that a VR game and get paid for it. So things comes around. Like if you just do stuff, it'll generally come back to you in a positive way. It seems like that's my experience at least. But the big game with the Norwegian thing, the reason we made it so Norwegian themed was because we were using it to apply to NFI, and they have a lot of like criteria for Norwegian quotas to reach. But I found out recently that if you are an established enough studio, you can completely disregard that and just make whatever themed game you want, because it's kind of like to me, it seems like it's gatekeeping by being like, hey, you have to make this Norwegian thing. And that's why there's a lot of Sami games being produced at the moment. I'm not sure how big the audience is for that, but they're getting funded.
The bad thing about NFE kind of is that the board there, or the ones who, the expert panel, are handpicked from Norwegian studios, and there are only that many Norwegian studios, and all of the veteran people from those studios knows each other, right? So then you are already biased when you get that application. I know this guy, I've known him for 13 years, and he's applying for money. I'm going to give him money, most likely. It's hard to stay non-biased when you get that application and you know the people who are applying for money, and you want them to keep their job as well, so you give them money.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard that Eirik was applying for stuff in the second year, I started thinking during the summer and before the summer about Studio 3 and how I might be able to use that to create something for a whole year that I might work further on after. And John, you've dealt more with these fundings than us two.
I've written some applications.
So would you say that you're more likely to get a funded project if you already have something that's corely developed, maybe over the school years?
Like, there is a reason why, if you look on YouTube videos and you speak to people in the industry, and they will always say, like, do game jams. That's really important for when you apply for a job. And I've done 15 game jams. These are my games from the game jam, and they can see that you've done work, and that they can see that you've done work, that you are efficient, and because when you're applying for a job, say as a 3D modeler on a character artist, right? We did that ourselves, and when we get applications, you see like one application is a really good model, but there's like 1 year in between each model posted on the portfolio, and then you go like, how long do they spend on this model? Because we need models pumping. We can't spend time on finding or getting the details right forever, and that's something that many people do, like for a hobby, and there are many very skilled sculptors out there that are experts at their craft, but you need to be efficient as well, and you need to cut corners, you need to know tricks, and that's what separates you from being a junior and being a veteran. Like a veteran will probably, or a senior as they say, will know a lot of tricks, have a lot of tricks in their book that will increase their efficiency considerably if you weigh it up against the student coming out of their studies.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of this efficiency, how do you convey your efficiency and how much stuff you've done over maybe a portfolio? Like, how did you guys go about making your portfolios in your applications, trying to convey that you were actually a good candidate for the jobs?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a really hard one to answer, I think.
just list up everything you have done and try to convey it in a way that it sounds like you know what what you're doing, right? So I was lucky when I was studying at Noroff, because I got the chance to work on a project for my game assets tree course. We worked 3 students on that project instead of doing the course itself like everybody else was doing. And after that was finished, I was asked to continue working on it for half a year. Like that is a really strong thing to say in your portfolio, for example, if you get that work experience and you can tell that story. But I was asked to continue to work on that. That means they like my work, and so it's important to convey that to whoever you are applying or whatever job interview you're on.
Right.
I also think it's clever to really specialize the application towards whatever you are applying for. You wouldn't use the same portfolio for I don't know, a coding position as a modeling position. That's very extremes, of
Yeah.
course. But you know, even if you have worked on a specific project, take the elements that is relevant for the position you're applying for and put them in a portfolio. And even though that overlaps with other stuff you've done, it still seems like you're actually trying to get that job. I mean, that's kind of what I did when I applied, at least.
Yeah, even do that and just send out applications everywhere, like to anything, because
yeah,
maybe you land a job. That's what I did. I got turned down from probably 100 jobs applications because people apply, and there's like, when we are asking for people, there are like 100 artists applying to the job, and it's like, whoa. It's really hard to figure out who is good enough or who fits this position, because you're overwhelmed in applications. So it actually might be better to go for a company to go actually on LinkedIn and such things, or go out to look for freelancers rather than to post out a job position, because it's a really competitive thing to get to actually land the job. So getting that first impression and getting them to read your CV and actually asking you into an interview, that's half the job. When you get into an interview, you can actually try to be confident and try to tell them and make them think that you are the right candidate, which you probably aren't, but you can become.
I mean, I hope they kind of teach you a bit of the work environment and maybe some of the procedures they do at their own company.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you'll be given an onboarding the procedure and the trial period at least. But regarding this, something that I've experienced is that even though a position opens up, I don't think a lot of students or junior people are going to hear about that position, because studios will go and they already have a pool of people that they know about that are really talented and really well, does their job really well. So they're going to probably contact them, and maybe they'll be offered a job even though they already have some project they're working on, because they are able to take on the extra work hours. So to kind of break into this, you need to kind of get on that list somehow, either by being persistent and showing your work, and also showing that you're improving over time without kind of being annoying in a way. It's like look at my drawing, look at my second drawing, but you got to do this in a very clever way. So there's a fine line between being annoying and like getting noticed.
Maybe start becoming a big YouTuber, but inside of the gaming industry, and like, yeah, look at me, and then you get a job, and you're like, you quit YouTube.
You're a big YouTuber. Yeah, I think you're making bank anyways.
People have done that.
Yeah. But
when I was studying, like, I got tips from one of my teachers who worked there then, Amit. He doesn't work there now. He's a lighting artist he went to Ubisoft in my last year, and he went to work on a game in London. And he was impressed with me in the level design course, and he asked me to join his company, which I did, but that didn't lead to anything. But if you get opportunities like that, you should just follow them and see if they get to anything, but when I was in contact with him, I got into a Discord server like Game School Online, and then you start to compare yourself with the actual other people that are gonna be submitting for this job that you're also gonna be applying for, and the skill level is insanely much higher, and can be at least. And another point I've heard is like your teachers might be applying for the same job that you are. So it's really important, because when you're a student, you can live inside of a bubble and think I'm best in class, so that means that my jobs are safe in the future, but that might not be the case.
Yeah, it's like you're competing with every class in everywhere. With this in mind, I'm like, do you guys think that it would be a good idea to try to apply for grants and funding for projects you've worked on throughout maybe Studio 1 or Studio 2 or Studio 3 while applying for jobs? And do you think it's better to, do you think it's a good idea to also apply for things that are not necessarily what you want to do? Let's say, obviously like store jobs, you know, working at the grocery store or something, but applying for like, what do you aim for to show that you're still in the field while you're not getting jobs in the field, is what I'm kind of asking.
Very good question, and I have met a lot of people recently who are struggling with that. I went to Consol this year in Bergen. And there was a lot of students there. There was a lot of people postgraduate who hadn't found a position yet, and that is a very tricky thing. So you obviously need to sustain yourself. You need to live. You need food. You need shelter. You know.
Pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. But if you don't have an industry job, you need to do something else, and that's what a lot of people do. They end up getting a different job, but they still work on their portfolio in their spare time. But what I see is that a lot of people are stuck in this like odd vortex of never having enough time to actually make that solid portfolio piece, while, you know, not exhausting themselves completely from their daytime job. And that is an awkward position to be in. And I don't think there's a specific solution for that other than staying persistent. But honestly, it's just a tough spot to be in.
It's also a matter of like, be consistent, don't go for perfection. Just if you get out the model, it has some quirks. That's better than spending 15 weeks on removing those quirks. Like one of the students that were on Noroff, the artist, can't recall his name, but he posted like pictures every day, every week last year or something.
Was it Conrad or Artem?
Artem, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. Like that guy, I could hire that guy for being concept artist on my game if I were developing something, because I know he can deliver. And if you can post that out on your LinkedIn or on your art station or anything, that becomes immensely more impressive than one really good image, one every month or every 5th month.
A terrible advocate for this, because I really don't show off something until it's done. But you know, things are never really done anyways. So at some point, you just gotta say it's good enough and show it off to the horse.
Like when you start to work in the studio, you just need to, at least when you're working with other developers, maybe not don't show that to clients ever, but like showing really, really rough sketches, and that really helps to keep the face going. Like if I can show you what I mean with 1 hour's work, and that will save me 30 hours work, so I don't have to develop the whole thing to show you, and that is a time saver. So working roughly, like sketching, if I want to create a VFX, I can tell you like it's going to spark out these spark particles first, and then we're going to do some mesh with some nice shaders with some fire swirling around, and then there's going to come some smoke. And if I can tell you that, and then you are kind of on board instantly, and instead of me actually making it and then saying, this is how it's going to be, and then the programmer goes, no, that's not going to work, we're going to have like 1 million instances of this, so that it doesn't work. But if you're a technical artist, you should already know that. It's your job.
Yeah, recently did some Sparks at work. But that's something that's new working with kind of people above you for me, is that you constantly have to show them what you're doing and get feedback and take that in and just iterate really fast. And it's something that I can be probably myself get a little bit more confident in doing, because I'm still a little bit scared of showing the art lead what I've come up with. But they're nice people and they don't want to see you fail, of course. They just want to make sure things are on track. And that's something that doesn't happen too much in Noroff, I feel like, because there you do one big delivery, of course. You get feedback throughout the semester, but it's not the kind of thing. It's not the same kind of feedback, because there you're like, yeah, that doesn't work from the get-go, and then you scratch it and you do something new. And it's better to know that at the start rather than like 20 hours in. It's like, nah, it doesn't work. Of course, that has happened too, but you gotta roll with the punches.
Like for the entire last year of our bachelor, I actually had a mentorship from Rosie Katz, who is a level designer on Call of Duty.
Ooh.
Which I met through like Game School Online, but that school is not up and running anymore, so I can't really give you that as a good way to get information anymore.
Because I want to be a coder in some way. I kind of want to be a game programmer, like making in-game functionalities, like shooting abilities or fireballs appearing. Just very, very gameplay-oriented stuff. Maybe even a combat designer. And that's like my desired position in the end. But I always see like videos of and hear about people who are coding, and they're always saying that we don't have time to do whatever we're supposed to do. And as a coder, I've seen that there's a lot of like, you can make the thing or you can make the thing optimally. And I'm starting to hear that we should just make it, and then it's keep working on the next thing instead of trying to optimize it. How do you guys balance that?
There is no balancing that. There's kind of like kicking the ball in the air and running and hoping to catch it again. It's game development, at least in a small firm like ours, it's really, really fast paced, and kind of just try to make it work first and clean it up later. And the backlog, you just throw that in a garbage bin and you move on. But I think that varies from studio to studio. If you have like 50 people working on one game or 100 people working on one game, that's a whole different thing. Like I have people specializing in only hair, and this guy has been working on hair for the past 15 years. That's a different thing than one guy who halfway knows how to make some hair, does it in half a day, and that's good enough. Let's move on. So depending on which, that's what I meant with what branch of the industry you kind of are aiming at, because if you're aiming at getting into one of these 100-man studios, 300-man studios, you should probably specialize into some kind of branch. But if you want to get into like indie studios with 3 or 5 people working in them, you need to wear a lot of hats. Like you need to be a game designer, you need to be a programmer, you maybe need to do some UI and stuff you aren't comfortable with doing at all, and kind of learn on the job. It's that's why it is rather rough, but that's how it kind of works. And everybody started there, even the big ones.
That's very true. So it's clear about not that many either. We're like 14 at the moment, I think. So when I get in there, I'm just I have the technical artist stamp on me, and they're like, "Hey, can you do some VFX?" Of course, I've done a little bit of VFX in the past, and I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And then I do VFX, and they give me more VFX tasks, and they're like, "Hey, you're the VFX artist now. You do all the VFX." So
change job mid position.
Yeah, but as Jon says, you just wear a lot of hats, and you have to be flexible and pick up new hats. For instance, I had to pick up a new hat this week only, and it's put myself into a completely new system and because there's just not enough manpower around to handle it. So if you're not flexible and you're like, no, I only do this, I don't think you can last in smaller studios. But then of course, that kind of attitude is what people in bigger studios want from me. So balancing that, I guess. Of course, if you should know what your passion is and probably pursue that, but just don't get too stuck in your ways.
Exactly. And I feel like at Noroff, especially starting at the second year when we started learning a bit of code and stuff like that, I feel like we all, especially me who wanted to do code, I was like in every group, like, hey, I can do the code. Hey, I can do the code. And then I think 3 other people started picking up the same thing, like, I want to do the code. And then we had one coder for each different team usually. And I felt like at Noroff, we were kind of forced, especially if we just had one coder, to do everything that had to do with code. We had to do movement, gameplay, UI, different interactions between scenes and whatnot. And I don't know if I could say that we're technical artists, because that's like technical stuff, I feel like. And I feel like that's what we've been doing in the courses has been mostly like game programming and UI implementation. And even though that's kind of what we've been learning, I would say, on our own, or that's what the projects have been requiring, I'm not sure if that would be a good how that would apply to a job that would come. Like, what kind of position would that be? Do you guys have any?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're doing gameplay programming, which in some studios is a position. Some people might just say doing programming in general, while some people might do that as tech art. But then again, like, all these things are just so loose. Programming is pretty specific, but like, if you're doing a bit of everything, you kind of have to decide for yourself what exactly it is that you're doing, and then be like, I want to do this. Or you can look at the work you've done and be like, this translates into this.
Right.
Yep. Like, I lost my thought now. Like, a generalist term for it is like, I'm a game developer, right? So when you say that to somebody, that doesn't mean anything. Like, what do you do? I do marketing for games. That's a game development position. You can be a game developer and be in charge of marketing. You don't do a lot of game development, but it can be tied into it. Like, my ambition is to become a game director one day, which that's my kind of what I went into Noroff as well, with the motivation. Like, I want to be able to do everything in a game, but I don't necessarily want to do everything in the game in a whole production. But that's what game directors need to kind of know. They need to know a little bit about everything. But when you're a programmer, and often that's an issue with programmers, they start to think that they're better than game designer at designing games because they know how to code games. And that's not necessarily true. Very often it isn't true. And in larger studios, that have become like a toxic environment problem where programmers don't respect designers and so on, which I've heard. I'm not sure how true it is. Haven't experienced it myself. But I experienced the same thing when I was at Noroff. Like, I was the one in the engine. I was the one implementing stuff. I was the one placing stuff in game prefabs. I was the one doing what a game designer should be doing in the engine, because they didn't know what they were doing. Right? They had no experience in the engine. So yeah, you kind of get a full schedule if you're doing coding and you're doing stuff in engine, and if you are a technical artist or a technical director or technical person in general in game development, you more than likely know how to code. Probably better than many of the programmers.
I mean, what would you say for like a new student? I mean, most game directors and directors of most facets of the games are usually by people who either have stakes in the company at some in some degree, or people who've actually done it before. So how likely would you say that it is for someone new to take over a very directive position in even an indie company with like 5 people?
In indie companies, like what we faced in our company was that we all had ideas about what would be best for the game, which were contradicting one another's ideas. So we were kind of having a battle against ourselves, and that became kind of non-productive. So we have now got 2 advisors on game design, and I took charge of game design as a game design lead, just so we can have one vision for the game, and instead of going with one vision and then suddenly after 4 weeks you're branching in a totally new direction because the loudest voice in the room changed his mind, and that can be very toxic. But when you're working in an indie studio, you have much more control over the product that your development are developing. Even if you are totally junior, you're in the room with all the decision makers, right? So you can make them listen to you. And that's not a possibility if you're working in a big studio and you're working in the art department under like 4 leads. So if you want to control what you're developing in to some extent, I would go into the indie industry.
And
I also think that. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I also think that's a little bit more a fast track if you want to do directive stuff. Is show that you have had influence on release titles. And in the studio, as you said, this is really easy. Like for instance, I'm at a small studio. If I wanted to, I'm sure I could come with my own concepts and ideas, and sometimes I do that. But mostly, I leave the game design to the game designers. I just do tools and make things go boom, and I enjoy that. So, if you want to get that, be the person in charge, you should start being the person in charge on of course small projects. That being said, though, I think you still need a couple of years of experience before you are actually able to land these positions, because I just don't think anybody's going to hire you for an executive position.
No, they're not
that easily.
Yeah, I can see that. One kind of I wouldn't say last question, but like last thing that I can think of is how would you say that it's vital to try to get an internship or some sort of position while you can work for free? Do you think that is something that drives your application forward faster or more? It makes it more likely?
Yeah, that's a hard discussion to have, because working for free or having people work for free and actually do work for you, it's kind of unethical. But then again, for this industry, like if you can do that, if you can spend, if you live at home with your parents, for example, and you don't have to spend that much money, and you can actually afford to spend 7 or 8 hours going around in a studio and actually doing some smaller game development tasks for that studio, that will be very valuable for you to say when you're applying for jobs in the future, and it will also give you very valuable experience. So if you can do it, if you're like, I was rather old when I started studying, so I had responsibility. I had a house and stuff I needed to pay and stuff. So that's hard for me to do. But if you're fresh out of high school and started to go to the uni, I would probably jump on it.
I mean, so I had personal experience here quite recently because I started working at Krillbite in April, and I had my internship there for 2 months until the summer. And of course, I was working for free there. And while I was in Oslo, I was meeting a lot of other interns and game developers, and I saw that they were getting paid, and I was like, I want that. So after my initial intern period was over, where I essentially worked for ECTs because it was for the Game as a 3 course, I was like, yeah, I love working here. It's great, but summer's coming up. I need payment. And then they discussed it briefly and decided to hire me, which I thought was great. But a lot of game studios have this power to be like, hey kid, you wanna make some ECTs and also work in another studio, and they're like, yay, ECTs and working at a studio is amazing. But after a certain time, ECTs doesn't pay your bills, unfortunately. I mean, if you use them to land a job, sure they do, but I think you as a junior, as an intern, should at some point start discussing your salary, your worth, essentially. And if you never do that, you are actually impacting the industry in a very negative way, because there are even postgraduates who have the ability to work for free and are taking positions for free. And they should obviously be getting paid for that, but it doesn't become a competitive, like, oh, this company is offering me this company is offering that. It becomes oh, this person can work for this little, this person can work for less, and essentially somebody can just work for free. And like, what are we going to do now? We're screwed. And I mean, I get that people need experience, but if you're working for free, not even for ECTs, it's like, what are the rest of us going to do? We can't work for free. We can't compete with that. And it's a very tricky spot to be in, gotta say.
Yeah, you gradually learn that you have value, like you're spending your hours, you're doing work that other people get paid for. Like if you spend time developing a product and somebody else is getting paid, you're getting robbed. So that's just how it is. But then again, like I worked with John Klima, the teacher, on a summer kind of like internship, but it was only me and him working on a app for a festival in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually did pay me some, but that gig landed me another gig where I was working with geolocation. So if you can do it, don't do it for a long time, like work on a project for a long period of time. If you have like a month, you can think of it as a game jam and get the experience. Try to extract the knowledge you can from the people you work with. Not that I'm not very good at that myself, but I learn most of what I do from the people I work with and from just working.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like right now, even in the courses, I feel like I'm trying to put in everything and work with the thing. I want this project I'm working on right now to hopefully be good enough to be pitched somewhere. That's why I'm working so hard on what is happening now and why I'm so invested. And I feel obviously that's going to probably help with the bachelor, but I want this head start in a sense, I am kind of working for free right now, or paying to work. And I'm just thinking about the future, that's I think that's what everyone is. But yeah, I mean, that was really everything I could think about talking about, unless you guys have something you're burning to say.
I mean, one last thing for me is just show up and just put your name out there. For instance, at Console, I was hearing about this guy for a long time. We got through friends, and it's like, I did this. It's just a funny guy. Like, he wasn't anybody, like, especially in the industry, but his name was out there, And if you are able to just do that, just put your name out there, and people are like, oh, you're that guy, you did that thing, then that's great. Connections are, unfortunately or fortunately, very, very important. Being kind, being being a little bit of personality never hurts.
Yeah, be respectful always. Like, don't be cocky, because I know something you don't know, and you know something I don't know. So we will learn from each other always. And people who are cocky and think they know everything are probably the worst kind of people to be working with, especially when you sit there and sweat with them for 8 hours a day, every day. It's not fun. So be kind, be understanding, and especially like when you're studying, that was something that could annoy me really much. Like, some people weren't giving as much as me, but I couldn't request them to do that. Like, I was giving giving it 120%, to the point where, yeah, I could have burned out by doing school. But you can't expect that from anyone else doing the studies, because somebody else is maybe just doing it for, they don't know what to do with their lives, right? So they enjoy games, so they go into game development and they kind of follow along. They do the bachelor. They will never have a job in the industry, but they may never aim to have that either. They just want to do something, find a meaning with their lives. And that can be a long journey, and some people find their passion when they are studying games, I think, and that's really good. But I don't think everybody can have a passion for game development, and I can see how people can find it really tedious and hard, because it is, by the end of the day, really hard work to develop games, and to walk that distance it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like we can compare the game industry a lot to working with music or theater, or movies. Even though it's more of a technical thing, I feel like it's so saturated. Saturated, is that the right word? Not enough jobs for the people.
That's a food on the table we were talking about.
Yeah, that's the metaphor. But I mean, no, yeah, it's arts. It's competitive. You are valued by the skills you have, not necessarily the education, but that's the way it is, and that's why some studios are great and some studios are not so great.
Yeah, and if
I mean, honestly, if you have a studio and you're making buck, I think you're amazing in general, because just doing that is just, wow, you did it.
And that's a problem with the Norwegian gaming industry. Was not making any buck. There's very few studios making money here.
Well, maybe we are the people who are going to change that. Make the next
somebody has to.
Minecraft or something.
Well, I mean, I know there's going to be more money flowing into the industry in the future, because we're already seeing the budget changes and everything. But what I'm afraid of is it going to be newer studios receiving the funding, or is it going to be the same people just receiving more money?
Exactly.
I'm hoping for the first thing, but I think it's going to be the latter.
Yeah, not much is going to happen on that side, I think.
Start applying to those studios.
Yeah. Hopefully those studios can provide more jobs then. Hopefully.
Send them emails.
Well, thank you guys. It's been a very informative conversation. I feel like I've gotten to know so much new stuff about actually field stuff. Been kind of surprised actually about how much you guys had to offer. I feel every time that I have a podcast episode that I'm talking to the teachers for the past episodes now, and I've asked about them and researched them and stuff. I feel like I haven't really gotten to know you guys in depth that well through this, but I feel like, of course, that wasn't really the point either. But I feel like I've gotten to know you guys as game developers through this, and that's nice. But I want to say thank you again for
thank you.
joining me on the podcast.
It was really nice.
I was hoping that Trausti would have been here, but something came up. I don't really know what, but it was very urgent. And I guess that's the episode. Thank you guys for watching. And do you guys have any handles that they should follow you on?
Play Fruit Bus on release. Fruit Bus.
And John?
Anybody can follow me on LinkedIn if you want that, or connect with me, I'll do it because it looks good for me.
Yeah, that too. If you want to link me up, Eirik Waldeland, and also Fruit Bus. Shameless promotion. That's kind of
All right. Thank you guys. And thank you guys for watching. And see you guys in the next episode. Woohoo!